This conference will now be recorded.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to today's panel on financial advice for social media Finfluencer. Please make sure that your microphones are muted while others are speaking, as this meeting will be recorded. If you wouldn't like to be seen in the recording, please keep your cameras off. We'll keep the Q&A towards the end of the panel, and if you have any questions, please submit them through the chat. All right, Knut, over to you.
Okay, well, thank you, Javier. Good afternoon, everyone. This is our 8th panel of Fiduciary September, 8 of 10 panels over the course of the month. We have more than 30 speakers who are part of our conversation we call the largest annual conversation about the importance of fiduciary. And this topic is a little bit different for us because on the surface it may not appear to be directly connected to fiduciary, but I disagree with that thought because I think in its broadest sense it is central to the issue of what is advice and what is the type of advice that is in the marketplace, and how well do consumers understand when they are actually receiving advice / fiduciary advice. So I think this topic is extremely significant. So today we've got 2 individuals who are both state regulators in different capacities, in different roles in different states. I'll let each of them introduce themselves as they begin their comments. But what we will do is to get an overview of their experience and their expertise on this issue of Finfluencer or finance influencer that is more and more visible in the marketplace, and hopefully get some ideas on what the profession, the industry, or organizations can do to combat what we're seeing out there. So with that very brief overview introduction, John, Maron, why don't you begin?
Okay, thank you, Knut. Really appreciate it. Appreciate the Institute's invitation and interest in this topic. My name is John Maron. I'm the Director of the Investor Education and Investor Protection and Education Services Program with the North Carolina Department of Secretary of State Securities Division. And the first thing I need to do is provide standard disclaimer. All thoughts, opinions expressed today are my own and do not necessarily reflect those of the North American Securities Administrators Association, NASA, or the Department of Secretary of State, North Carolina. And all that I'm going to be talking about is sort of intended for educational purposes only, not intended for legal or investment advice. With that, I will also just briefly say that I've worked with the Secretary of State's office for about 17 years, doing these kinds of educational outreach, fraud prevention programs. I and my team, of whom one of them is on this call in the audience, we have done some 1,600 different presentations for over 130,000 people statewide here in North Carolina. So looking forward to the conversation, and anytime I'm on a panel with Joe is just icing on the cake for me.
Well, I appreciate the kind words, John, and I'm very happy to play the role of Robin to your Batman on this call. My name is Joe Rotunda. I am the Director of the Enforcement Division of the Texas State Securities Board. I'm also privileged to serve as the Vice Chair of NASA's Enforcement Section. And this is the part of the introduction where I'm also going to offer a standard disclaimer. Any opinions that I share during this podcast are my own. They do not necessarily reflect the views of NASA. They also do not reflect the views of the members of NASA. Now, that said, I have been working as a securities regulator in this capacity since 2007. I've seen a lot of interesting, exciting changes in the market. And I don't know that we have seen the types of changes, the types that kind of give rise to the finfluencers or the influencers that we've seen in the past. It's just been a very radical transformation. I'll also note that I do come from a prosecutorial background. I served as a white-collar prosecutor in Travis County in Austin for many years, and I had the privilege of actually prosecuting securities fraud cases, insurance fraud cases, and cases that are just involve financial professionals. So I've seen the regulatory side, I've seen the criminal side, and I'm very, very honored to be able to share my thoughts and my opinions with you all today.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Okay, let's start. And I don't know whether there's a logic in terms of which one of you, based on your role, goes first in terms of drilling down a little bit about what you see as the problem, the challenge today, and how it is or is not different from what you've seen in prior years. Again, I'm not sure if there's a logic, whether it's Joe because he's on the enforcement side, or whether it's John because he's on the education side. But you tell me.
I'll suggest it, Joe, because oftentimes the educational side of things is driven by what the enforcement folks start seeing, because the fraudsters out there are usually the ones that come up with the wrinkle, and then it's the enforcement side that has to kind of deal with it, and then comes sort of the public education process. So
okay,
maybe Joe might be the more logical of the two of us to start.
Okay, Joe. So
yeah,
give us an overview. You are in one of the largest states in the country, so you certainly have that perspective as well as your colleagues in other states. So give us an overview of what you're seeing and how it is different or not different, and what the states, Texas or other states that you know are doing about it from an enforcement perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question, and I think my answer is going to be based on technology. We'll talk a little bit about just the way that we are sharing information right now, which necessarily includes the way we're sharing information about investments or recommendations about different types of investments. And I pulled some statistics that I thought were kind of fascinating. I think they illustrate kind of how we got here. And just by way of background, when I first started at the Texas State Securities Board, one of the things that we were doing is we were looking through the newspapers, right? The newspapers in Dallas, the newspapers in Houston. We looked through some of the national newspapers on a regular basis for advertisements and offers, right, of individuals that were promoting their special skill in selecting investments, or right, identifying highly profitable investments. They were marketing this through the newspapers. Around that time, only around 5%, this is according to the Pew Research Center in a report that was published in April of 2021. At that time, only around 5 to 7% of U.S. adults use social media. That's changed, right? That world has changed. Today, more than 72% of adults in the United States use social media. And the demographics are absolutely fascinating. When we think about the individuals that have money, right, they're gravitating towards social media. It's not just younger demographics that are using it. So what I want to do is I thought, senior citizens really are one of the targets of individuals who are promoting bad investment advice or legally promoting investment advice. And, in 2005, 2007, there were about 3% of older Americans, right, individuals aged 65 years or older, use social media. Most recent statistics, right, from the middle of 2021, around half of seniors are using social media. Well, what's that mean? That means that individuals who are illegally promoting investment advice, right, bad investment advice, moved from those newspapers with a very limited circulation to social media, which allows them to, at a very cheap cost or at no cost, broadly target large groups of individuals simultaneously and instantly, right? And that's what we're seeing, right? That's really driving this. All the good that comes with the internet, all the good that comes with social media, it does have some downsides. And one of those is that bad actors can leverage social media to kind of perpetrate what they're doing, right? Offering this bad investment advice. And they're able to do it to make them more efficient, right? More effective in getting that out there. And technology has really driven the way the investment advice is given. I mean, people traditionally go to professionals, right? Licensed professionals that have a pedigree, that have a history. We can do due diligence on them, can make sure they're real people, that they're actually real people, right? And they actually have the real names that they're holding themselves out on. And social media has kind of changed that. Anybody can record a video now. I mean, we are appearing right now, we are talking right now through a technology that just a few years ago wasn't necessarily available to us or commonly used. They can cheaply put together a video. It can now look professional, right? They can kind of give that aura, that and I'll use the word, the illusion, right, of legitimacy. And when individuals are gravitating towards social media, right, in large masses, they may not be as familiar with the pitfalls that come with the internet. And that allows individuals who can offer this bad investment advice to kind of flourish, right? Makes them more efficient and effective. So what are we doing as states? I think really the goal is for us is we really want to be proactive, right? We cannot be reactive. If we're reactive, people are already been hurt, and they may have been hurt in large quantities. They may have gotten bad investment advice in large quantities, right? Because this technology allows that to happen. So many state agencies now are routinely patrolling social media websites, and there are a number of them, right? We're talking about the TikToks, the Telegrams, we're talking about YouTube, even Discord. I've seen securities related information being promoted through like Pinterest, right? And that doesn't even account for some of the largest platforms in the world, right? Facebook, Meta, Reddit, which is also very popular, LinkedIn, of individuals putting together profiles. So we're trying to find them and stop them before we receive complaints or before their schemes collapse under their own weight.
Great. John, you want to?
Yeah. Yeah, well, and so, you know, when folks like Joe come across these kinds of things and we start seeing them happen more and more frequently, then it does become the job of the outreach folks, the educational folks, to come out and you know, shine a spotlight on some of this, and again, sort of raise the common sense questions. You know, somebody once, our former deputy administrator here used to talk about, you know, the bad guys are selling the sizzle, and everybody wants to believe the sizzle, but we need to sort of slow down and say, hey, wait, you know, this is a highly regulated industry. Investment advice, security sales are heavily regulated. The law requires, you know, disclosures, transparency, and, you know, slow down. If it's a good investment today, it'll be a good investment tomorrow after you've had an opportunity to check, as Joe suggested, to make sure that the person that you're dealing with is a real person. They are licensed to do what it is they say they're trying to do for you. And we just encourage people to think with their heads, not their hearts. You know, that's what the fraudsters out there are trying to do, is make an emotional decision about this stuff. And you know, our job is to kind of sort of say, hey, slow down, let's think about it. You know, if you're willing to drive around town looking for, you know, pennies off of a gallon of gas, why don't you use the same kind of methods when you're evaluating your investment portfolio or investment options, and not just simply trust the first person that you see on TikTok. So that's sort of the genesis of, I think, what sort of spurred your interest in having this this discussion on Finfluencers is that, as the whole issue of influencers became more and increasingly apparent, folks like me and some other colleagues in other states, jurisdictions, got together and said, let's try to put together some type of educational piece. And we came up with through NASA, a 2-page little investment advisory on Finfluencers. And it's written in such a way as to kind of explain the situation in easy to understand terms, and give people the kinds of questions that they should be asking themselves, and point them in the direction for getting answers to those questions.
Right. Okay. I want to jump in. I know I see one individual who I know from the Fourth Estate. Patrick, do you have any questions you would like to direct to either of these speakers right now?
Maybe I can listen. Not at the moment, but thank you. Thanks for maybe if I can put something in the chat later if yeah, well there's one thing I was thinking of that you were just mentioning is in terms of kind of folks in the that are in the on the enforcement side of this or in the educational side of this, whatever it may be, how much expertise is there kind of ingrained in those institutions to make sure that you're meeting, a population of fraudsters that I would imagine have a lot of technical know-how and a lot of people who are kind of native to these social media platforms, unlike me, for example. I think a lot of people that use social media and are Finfluencers and are influencers in general have grown up with these platforms. It's kind of been innate to them. So how do enforcers and people on the educational front kind of make sure they can meet that that kind of ingrained expertise?
Well, that is a challenge. The folks that we have on our staff, they do have to learn the technology. But again, what I try to do with my presentations and information I present is to just sort of make things as easily understandable as possible, and just again sort of remind people that there are resources out there that they can turn to for information, and to again just sort of step back and try to remove the emotion from the situation. But Joe can probably talk more specifically from the enforcement side of things.
Yeah, absolutely, and I appreciate that, John. I think enforcement and education go hand in hand more today than I think at any time that I've been around. I've been in the industry or as a regulator. One of the things that's absolutely kind of fascinating is that with this, with the use of technology to reach a broad audience, a lot of the influencers aren't really hiding. They're actually trying to get as much daylight on them as possible. And when we have that as the case, we can kind of really see how these issues are evolving in the aggregate as well as in the specific. And I think, a group of states had brought an action against a Finfluencer earlier this year. And it really kind of turned into a case study of what we're seeing in this area. And what we're able to do with that is on my side, we're bringing the enforcement actions. On John's side, I mean, quite frankly, he is using the exact same technology that influencers and his influencers are using to reach their audiences, right? And he's using the same technology to reach the same audience, right? We're putting information out on the internet. It goes out through social media. It gets indexed in search engines, right? Key terms come up during search results, which is absolutely fascinating. But, I know with my staff, some of the things that we're looking for is any disclosure of compensation. And a lot of times that compensation isn't being disclosed, unlike a fiduciary who is supposed to act in somebody's best interest, right? Who is supposed to be taking into account their individual positions and needs. What we're seeing with influencers are largely paid, right? They're paid to promote a product. And that's not necessarily a bad thing in the abstract. But when we're talking about investments in a highly regulated industry where we're making sure that investors know exactly what they're getting, right? That's dangerous. A lot of times there's not a disclosure of qualifications, right? We have no idea how these individuals came to the purported recommendations. Do they do sort of an analysis? Do they have some sort of industry insight? If they're claiming an industry insight, is that something that we can independently verify, right? Can we tell whether these individuals have ever worked at a financial institution, whether they have any type of financial expertise, or if what the real expertise is recording videos and being a spokesperson and nothing more. And that is something that is, very, very dangerous. And I think a lot of the folks that we're seeing, kind of come up here, the folks that are getting some type of investment advice, some of the investors that we're protecting, a lot of them recognize the Matt Damons of the world who appear on TV during Super Bowl commercials and endorse a product. And they may understand that Matt Damon is an actor, right, and does not have the financial qualifications to fully evaluate a particular product. But when we turn to the influencers on YouTube, right, some of them who may not even be using the real name, they come across and are able to portray themselves as having an expertise that just can't be found anywhere else. And so that's kind of what we're seeing there. And that's why I really like what John's approach is and the education programs are doing. They're getting the information out there to the exact same means as a warning system, right? It allows for kind of the highlighting of red flags. And once that information is either indexed in a search engine or it's publicly available on the internet, it becomes freely available. And we're really kind of hoping that two-part approach, right, that we've kind of put together is something that we can use as not only a blueprint, but we can build upon to become better.
Patrick, any follow-up?
No, not at the moment. That was helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Joe, the case you referenced that is becoming a case study, are the basic materials, the complaint there that you could send me that I could post on our website as a part of the materials here, or are they not public, those materials?
They are public. They are public. They're absolutely fascinating. Just to give you kind of the spoiler alert, this Finfluencer who pushes out videos on a regular basis, usually 2, 3, 4 a week on different products, was encouraging investors to purchase a certain type of an NFT, which is a type of a cryptocurrency, which has become very, very popular over recent years, right? And it was a promotion that provided passive income, right? It was going to set you up for the long term at a time when the markets have uncertainty, right? This particular product was the way to go. And this Finfluencer claimed to have inside information, right? Management showed him. They showed him the progress of their work, which we found out was absolutely false because the entire scheme originated from Moscow, Russia, right around the time of the start of the Ukraine war. We got in at a time that 11,111 securities, right? These cryptocurrency securities are being offered. Only 42 sales have been made. And I'm very happy to say that after our work here, around 6 months later, that total number of sales remains at 42.
Great. So if you could send me that, email it, so I will put it, there's a place on our site for materials that go along with each of these panels. so to speak. And John, the same thing. You talked about presentations. I don't know whether you're talking about overhead slides or what exactly you're talking about, but if it's something that is in the category of materials that we can associate with this session to complement what this session is, we would be glad to have it.
Okay.
So anyway, are there any other individuals from the Fourth Estate who have any questions? I know Patrick. I don't think I know Tasman, and maybe she's from one of your offices. I don't know, but I want to make sure that that reporters have a chance to ask whatever questions they have for you guys. So I just want to put that out there. So so going forward, based on what you've described, based on what you're seeing today, what is your outlook in terms of this issue with Finfluencers? And we know that you don't have a crystal ball. If you did, you maybe wouldn't be doing what you're doing right now if you had a crystal ball. But what is your sense of how the marketplace and you and your colleagues who in other states, how do you think this is going to play out going forward, near term anyway? You know, any thoughts on that?
Well, personally, I think it's probably all going to ultimately, there's going to be sort of a convergence. There already is between the real and the unreal world, the metaverse, and cryptocurrencies and investing, and it's all going to get wrapped up into sort of all together. And I think a lot of what we're talking about will sort of move into this uncharted netherworld, where the regulatory scheme is a bit murky, I guess. Hasn't been completely worked out yet. Although, again, I think you can make an argument that you know, the real world rules apply to the unreal world. But I suspect that's where a lot of this is going to go. I know Joe has invested a lot of time. He did a fantastic presentation at one of the NASA meetings back in the fall or spring about the metaverse and where he sees things going. But I tend to subscribe to his thought process on this, and I think we'll probably start seeing the further blurring of lines between the physical world and the virtual world.
Yeah. John, to follow up just specifically with you as the educational guy, do you have a sense for how the consumers that you have interactions with in your just your normal walk of life, how their sophistication of what is going on compares to, you know, pick your time, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years ago, and the nature of fraudsters then? I mean, is there any comparison in your mind in terms of their awareness, their sophistication, along those lines?
Well, you know, as I sort of alluded in the earlier presentation that I crashed, I think there's general confusion and lack of understanding among the general public about, you know, the roles and responsibilities of the different financial people that they come in contact with. And I'll sort of give the example of, you know, a person walks into their local bank or financial institution and sit down to meet with somebody, and they start, you sort of, I think most people have the belief that the person that they're dealing with has their interests in mind, the client's interests in mind, when in fact that's not always the case, and that there are different roles, different responsibilities, and that one person could have multiple roles, wearing multiple hats,
Yeah.
and their responsibilities will change based on what information is being sought or services being sought by the client. And that basic information is just not, I just don't see that the average person
Yeah.
understands that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, again, largely what I try to do is just try to keep things as simple as I can, and just sort of explain to folks that there are these different roles, and that the responsibilities that each of these people have can vary, and they don't always necessarily have the person's interest at heart. So you're asking me, you know, with regard to, you know, the rise of the internet and Finfluencers, you know, I think the issues are still the same. There's still a lack of understanding on the part of the general investing public, that they have rights, and that there are, you know, legal responsibilities that people who are in the investment industry owe to them.
Yeah.
And so that's really, again, and most of my presentations are half an hour, 45 minutes, you know, with questions, and you just have a hard time getting into all the nuances, and so you try to keep things as simple as you can.
Sure. Sure. Joe, do you have anything to add on that question, so to speak, in terms of what you see?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think John covered a lot of really, really good stuff. So I'm not going to regurgitate exactly what he said, but I do want to add, I think, 2 points. Number one, you know, and it kind of goes, it just builds upon what John said. You know, technology really is advancing. New products are coming in the marketplace. We have demographics that are very comfortable with the technology now, and it's out there, right? It's absolutely out there. And as technology continues to kind of smash down, right, break down these barriers to entry, you can have more and more of these influencers or finfluencers out there, right, promoting different types of products, different services. The one, you know, I'm just going to add where I think it's going because of the state of the law. And I'm going to go back to 1985, and there was a United States Supreme Court case that recognized the tension between individuals who are offering some type of advice about investments on a broad scale and our freedom of speech, right? It's recognized by the U.S. Constitution and the state constitutions. That, you know, that case was low, and it involved, you know, a person who did a lot of bad things, right? Stole from a client, stole from a bank. Was convicted of tampering, right, trying to cover up and obstruct the investigation into that. So this is somebody who was criminally prosecuted and then turned around and decided to put together a semi-monthly newsletter promoting different types of investments. And that was the 1985 equivalent of a Finfluencer right there, right? A monthly newsletter that would be sent out back in the day to, you know, 8,000, 9,000. I think the circulation range got up to maybe 13 or 14,000 at one point, but that is tiny compared to what we're seeing a single YouTube video get, right? The number of views on a YouTube video that lasts 10 minutes that may have taken a couple of hours to put together, right? So, you know, and essentially what that case held is that as long as the advice is not personal, right? You're not personally talking to an individual client about their situation. We have essentially created a environment where influencers and flinfluencers can kind of, free of the law, like free of regulation, emerge and promote and talk without the consequences that come with being an unregistered or unlicensed investment advisor. And I think that's going to continue as long as that dichotomy, right, is set up, as long as there is a recognition that they have a right to free speech to go out there, even if they are doing things that are difficult, right, doing things that are bad, maybe they're you know, it at least allows them to go out there and spread this information while states investigate, while regulators investigate, uncover, learn. It's a very dangerous situation on the ways that influencers can legally operate right now.
Right, right. Wow, wow, wow. Can you say, Joe? You talked about this one case, which I look forward to getting whatever you can send me.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other cases in the pipelines in different states that you can? I mean, you don't have. I'm not asking you to speak of them specifically,
Mm-hmm.
but just general knowledge that these are in the pipeline, and maybe we will hear more and more about how they're resolved going forward. Is that in the cards?
That is absolutely in the cards. We are, I know of other states that are working on these matters. I know I am working on these matters. I know we are looking at different legal techniques and legal tools. I mean, again, we don't want to violate anybody's right to free speech, right? We do not want to infringe upon that. But there are legal tools that we do have when individuals cross a line, and they may cross a line, and states may have recourse under other causes of action. And for example, what we saw with some of these influencers in the crypto realm is, they're receiving compensation to promote a product. And while they appear to be operating as an investment advisor on the influencer side, the mechanics actually fit, right, the traditional sales agent paradigm, and we may be able to take a look at them under those aspects. So yeah, there are things in there, things in the works. We're trying to think outside the box, and I think that's absolutely necessary. Whereas at the same time, we don't want to infringe on free speech. If someone's acting as an unregistered agent, even if they appear as a investment advisor, we may have recourse and ability to protect the public by pursuing a cause of action against them for the unregistered agent aspect.
Well, that's a good place to pause. That is a little bit upbeat. If we can have something that's upbeat in this conversation, that is definitely upbeat. So I appreciate that. John, any final comment from your perspective, and maybe not, but I just want to ask.
No, I appreciate it. No, I mean, I think Joe's exactly right. I mean, I'm not involved in the prosecution side or the enforcement side of things, so I don't have any insider information about what what things are investigations are underway. I do know that NASA is a wonderful organization that works very collaboratively. The member there's 67 member jurisdictions all across North America that can get together and they can pool resources and work on multiple cases at various times. So I'm always amazed by the work that individual NASA jurisdictions are doing, and so just yes, I think there will definitely be more news to follow.
Great, excellent. Well, I think at this point maybe we will wrap it up. I don't think there's anybody else on that will have a question or does have a question. I know one of these individuals, I guess, is from one of your offices, but I want to thank you again and thank NASA and for Jeannie for putting you guys for bugging you or nudging you. I know this was a bad time with your conference, and I get that, and I apologize for that conflict, so to speak. But I really appreciate this. I love the work that you guys do, and as I said to others in NASA, that report, I think of the report from last November on Reg BI, and that is an extraordinary report, which I think probably deserves a lot more attention. I don't know how much attention it got, but deserves even more attention because of what it is. So I think the world of NASA, and so I'm glad that we were able to do this. And I'm going to follow up with both of you as I'm thinking about what the Institute may or may not be interested in sort of pursuing along these lines. So anyway, so thank you again, and I appreciate
I want to thank
it.
you as well, Knut. Thank you and the Institute for the interest in this. I'm hoping that you guys will help be a Finfluencer for good here.
Well, that is certainly our mission. That is certainly a mission. One thing I'm going to send you is we're going to release tomorrow a new pamphlet / brochure to introduce people to what we what we are, who we are, and I hope that it will bring a smile to your face as you read it. But anyway, so absolutely we'll be in touch. So thanks, and have a nice rest of the week for you, and we'll be in contact.
Great, thanks. Appreciate it.
All right.
Take care,
Yeah.
Joe.
Thank you all very much. Really appreciate it. Take care.
Yeah.